Hey everybody, today we're back with another 2004 deck, and that's going to be Gardevoir EX. Anybody that knows me knows that I absolutely love Gardevoir. It's one of my favorite Pokemon, and it seems like whenever Pokemon prints a Gardevoir, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a Tier 1 deck, and Gardevoir EX from 2004 is no exception at all. It is absolutely a Tier 1 deck. It does have some counters, it does have some rough matchups in the matchup, but it also has a lot of really good matchups. I think it has a favorable Blaziken matchup. And even decks that it can struggle against, it goes usually at least 50-50 with. So the main strategy of the deck here is all based around this Gardevoir EX. It's going to be your main damage output. It's got 2 attacks. The first one is feedback, and it counts the number of cards in your opponent's hand, and you put that many damage counters on the defending Pokemon. The second attack is Psystorm, and it does 10 damage for each energy card in play. That's both yours and your opponent's. Now, the downside is it does give your opponent a little bit of room to play around your damage output. The plus side is it restricts a lot of plays. So, feedback, for example, in the 2004 format in particular, people really want to keep very large hand sizes. And if they're not careful, feedback is going to just be a one-hit KO. I've actually had a lot of games where people will mess up and they'll keep their hand under the feedback knockout limit, and then they'll take a prize, and then all of a sudden put themselves back up into the right number to get knocked out with feedback. Things like that you got to be really, really careful of, really cautious of. Opponents will very easily make misplays with that. And then with Psystorm, you want to make sure you're getting those energy in play. You want to make sure you're attaching those energy each play, and to try to not attach energy to avoid doing extra damage from Psystorm is usually not a great play. And of course, Gardevoir has a lot of ways to put its own energy in play to make sure that it is getting those one-hit knockouts with Psystorm. So usually what I found with the deck is feedback is really good damage for the energy cost. And early in the game, especially when you're going against Dunsparces, things like that, it's very easy to get knockouts with it for very little investment. And then in the later stages of the game, that's when you transition more into a Psystorm approach, doing massive amounts of damage to knock out basically anything the opponent puts in front of you. So a lot of the times I will find they have to settle for a 2 or 3 hit knockout on my Gardevoir EX while I'm one-shotting them. To back up Gardevoir EX, we also have Gardevoir here with the Psyshadow. Grab a Psychic Energy out of your discard or out of your deck, attach it to one of your Pokemon, and then you put 2 damage counters on it. Very pricey for energy acceleration, especially once you look at Ruby Sapphire Blaziken, which is out of the discard pile for free, and then Water Call Swampert, which grabs it out of the hand for free. But it's a lot more manageable than it seems on paper. And beyond that, there's a lot of little texts and tips and tricks, and we'll get into that when we do the deck profile here. But that's just kind of a general viewpoint overview of it. So starting off here, we play 4 copies of Dunsparce. We are relying on that Delcatty Magneton engine. We've got to make sure we get those basics at the start, and we're also thinning our deck out. Beyond that, Sudden Flash, 10, 50-50 shot at paralysis. Great attack here. 4 Rolts. The best Rolts is going to be the Hypnosis Rolts for a couple of different reasons. One, if you're going first and let's say you open Rolts against Dunsparce, you can try to Hypnosis them. You got a 50-50 shot that they're going to miss their attack on the next turn, especially early on in the game where they're not going to have that switch or warp point to get out of it. And then second of all, Psystorm or Psychic Boom can actually be really good in Mirror. Let's say your opponent has like a Gardevoir EX of their own. They just knock something out of yours. They've got 4 energy under it. You can send up a Rolts, attach a Psychic Boom, and then hit them for 80. It's not a great play if you're relying on Rolts to do battle against a Gardevoir EX, but it is nice that you can have something small that has decent damage output on a basic you got to run anyways. 2 Kirlias. I do not split the line here. I think the life, I think it's Life Do or something, where basically you flip coin if heads, it puts the opponent at 10 HP left, is just not worth it. 1, because it's on a coin flip, and then 2, because 1, it's on a coin flip, and then the second reason is it's still a 2-hit knockout. And Gardevoir already excels at doing 2-hit knockouts. I think it's much more likely, and going along with that, if I'm sending Curly up, and if my game plan is I'm going to attack with Curlia on a 50-50 attack to not even knock you out, I'm having a lot of trouble in that game. And I think just a normal evolution, you open roll, it's going to Kirlia. That removal beam is a much more likely attack where you can do something to maybe remove a psychic energy off of Dunsparce, or remove an energy off of Dunsparce, or something like that, just as you're progressing through the game. Beyond that, you do have situations where Super Psy is really good. For example, I was playing a game against a Mucky X where I brought up a Kirlia with a Psychic, attached my boost, was able to one-hit KO a Mucky X. So I just find this Kirlia to be the better Kirlia. I do think you can make an argument for the Thunderblast Kirlia, or the one that does 20 damage, you get a flip coin if heads paralyzes them, but I just think this is the better Kirlia overall. Next up, we play 2 copies of Gardevoir. Now, the reason for this is Gardevoir is an okay attacker. It does 10 damage for each energy attached to both you and the defending Pokemon, but to get really good numbers there, you got to start investing boost energies. And a lot of the time, it's not the go-to option. Or I never really feel like I need a third Gardevoir. So 2 has always played very well for me. It just makes sure it's not in the prizes. You get that energy acceleration. But it's not something where I'm going to have games where I'm just throwing 3 or 4 Gardevoirs at the opponent. That's just generally not the game plan that I'm going to go with here. 2 Gardevoir EX. 2 plays fine. Usually, between that and a Town of Volunteers, 2 plays fine. I've never really wanted a third Gardevoir EX or anything like that. 2 Skitty, 2 Delcatty. This is just going to be your general consistency here. I once again went with the minor errand running Skitty. I think it's very important to be able to get those energy and then have the Lullaby. Depending on the meta and how the meta kind of grows and adapts, I think you can make some very good arguments for playing the 50 HP Skitty. But I do think the minor errand running Skitty is the correct play right now. Next up, we've got I split the Magnemite line here. And so I went with 1 random Spark. I think Gardevoir doesn't have a ton of ways to hit the bench. It doesn't have any ways to hit the bench. So just in case you're 10 shy on something, that random Spark is an option. And then, of course, you do have the Thunder Shock option here with the other Magnemite. And then we play 2 copies of Magneton. I do, in decks where it's essential that I have to have that magnetic field. And beyond just the consistency with Delcatty, I really need the magnetic fields. I have to play a 2-2 line. And this is one of those decks where you have to have a Magneton in play. You can't play a 1-1 line and hope you just don't prize it. Because you're going to have a lot of situations. You run out of Psychic Energy in the deck very quickly. And one of the things that you have to be able to do is you have to be able to magnetic fields, get the Psychic Energy back into your hand, and then either use Copycat or Desert Shaman to put them back in the deck so you can then Psyshadow for them. Beyond that, in a deck where basically your entire damage output is based on how many energy you have in play, you want to make sure you're hitting those manual attachments every single turn, and Magneton is going to make sure that you do that. Next up, we play a 101 Blossom line. This is pretty standard in a lot of Stage 2 decks, popularized by Chris Fulop. Essentially, instead of playing Stadiums, you just play a 101 Blossom line to counter opposing Desert Ruins. Blossom also heals 20 damage, so it counteracts the Psyshadow if you have to do. If you're attaching a Psychic Energy with Psyshadow, Blossom will counter that. And beyond that too, it makes healing 20 helps numbers with Gardevoir EX a lot. Maybe you can turn a 2-hit KO into a 3-hit KO on a Gardevoir EX. Now, I am going to say I've tried, instead of the Blossom, I've tried 2 Pokemon reversals. I've also tried Victory Bell. I think there's a couple different things that you can do with those slots. Blossom is, in my opinion, just the most consistent option. But, like I said, I do think Victory, this is another deck, just like the Machamp deck I covered a couple of weeks ago, where Victory Bell would be a solid option for it as well. For Steven's advice, 4 Copycat, absolutely must standard in this format. 4 copies of Rare Candy. We do, not only outside of our Gardevoir line, we also play the 101 line. You got to have those 4 candies in here. 3 Oracle combos very well with the Delcatty Magneton engine, letting you search your deck for any 2 cards, put them on top, automatically draw them. This is going to help you set up. I play 2 copies of Friend Ball. Once again, anytime that you're playing this Delcatty Magneton engine, I'm a huge fan of Friend Ball. Even if you're not playing against a Psychic deck, you are going to be able to Friend Ball on opposing Dunsparces to search out that Delcatty very early, or find your own Dunsparce, or against other Delcatty Magneton decks, be able to find basically any piece of your combo you need. Friend Ball as a normal item card here is absolutely amazing. One copy of Desert Shaman. I just wanted a little bit more consistency in the deck. Desert Shaman might seem very counterproductive, especially when we do use feedback as a big attack for the deck, but it's also great against, I found a lot of Gorbis decks in the format do not play Delcatty Magneton in them. So that's one of the things that you can do in that matchup is put them down to a 4-card hand or try to put them off some of their outs right before you do a knockout on a key Gorbis or something like that. Professor Elm's Training Method. I play one copy of that. Just be able to search out my EXs, search out any evolution that I might possibly need. I did not do the 3 Friend Ball in this list. I did go ahead and play the 1 Elm's Training Method in here. 1 Pokemon Nurse. Once again, you're riding that Gardevoir EX. You have the Blossom for healing to try to change a 2-hit knockout into a 3-hit knockout. And Pokemon Nurse just gives you a whole nother option to make Gardevoir EX stay in play even longer than it would normally. And one of the great things about this deck, even more so than, let's say, Blaziken or Swampert or a different deck or something like that, is that you can Pokemon Nurse a Gardevoir EX. Full health, Psyshadow with Psychic Energy on it, boost, and then you can hit a Psystorm. So you can use Gardevoir's most powerful attack, a 4-energy attack, the same turn you Pokemon Nurse it, and I think that's just, it's outstanding. It just makes a 1 copy of Nurse just such a crucial card in the deck here. I've actually thought about testing a 2nd copy of Nurse before too, especially when I was playing without the Blossom, but the 1 copy of Nurse plays fine. It's a situational card, and it's a nice situational card to have, but it's not something that you want to flood your hand with, especially early on in the game when you're trying to get set up. 1 copy of Town Volunteers. Like I talked about, we do play some thin lines here with only 2 Ruby Sapphire Gardevoir, 2 Gardevoir EX, and then just like a 101 Blossom line. So having that Town Volunteers is great. I also want to note it's useful that we can use Town Volunteers to send energy back to the deck and then get them back with Gardevoir. A lot of the, I would say, more advanced gameplays with the deck is just being conscientious of and thinking of ways to get those psychic energies back into the deck to get more energy acceleration out of Psyshadow. And I also want to say, too, is you should be Psyshadowing almost every single turn that you have the option to Psyshadow. And sometimes I think people are like, oh, I've got to put it under Gardevoir EX, I got to put it under Gardevoir. Throw it under a Magneton, throw it under a Blossom, throw it under a Delcatty. I mean, just get those energy in play, especially if you don't want to put that additional, I guess to be a little more clear, if you don't want to put that additional 20 damage on, say, a Gardevoir EX, or you don't want to put that 20 damage on a Ruby Sapphire Gardevoir, because that would be a bad play, throw it under a Delcatty, throw it under a Magneton, throw it under a Blossom, get the energy in play. Just so you have that damage, you can hit those 1-hit knockouts on Psystorm. So I went ahead, I played 1 copy of Switch here. I find Switch to be a little bit better in Warp Point in this deck, mainly because I usually want to knock out what's active. I'm not trying to search for cheap prizes on the bench. I'm not spreading damage with the deck. I want to hit what's active. So if I'm switching, if my opponent brings something up and they paralyze my Dunsparce or something like that, I want to hit whatever they have active. So I'm just going to switch out of that, throw up that Gardevoir EX, and start doing some major damage here. The energy lineup, I went with 9 Psychic, 1 Lightning, and 4 Boost. You will see in a lot of my decks that I play Blossom and Magneton that I will add a Grass Energy in there, but it is just so essential that we hit those Psychic Energies, and we're just maximizing those Psychic Energies, that we do put all 9. We don't play the Grass Energy, we do play the Psychic Energy. Now, I did break a little bit, play 1 copy of Lightning Energy, and this is because, like I said, Gorbis is a major deck in the format, and I think even now in a more modern 2004, you are going to see a lot of Gorbis. It's basically Gorbis, insert partner here, and I think I have, for 2004, I think I have 19 or 20 decks built, and I think probably 8 or 9 of them is Gorbis partner. And I think you start seeing a lot more of those. James Arnold won the 2004 tournament a couple months ago with a Gorbat, Krobus deck, stuff like that. For people that have played me on PTCG1 lately, you'll see that I'm playing a Metagross Gorbis deck. There's just a ton of different partners, a ton of different options with it. So being able to use Magneton and that Magnetic Force attack to knock out in a Lightning weak Gorbis is just such a strong play, and you don't need more than one, because if you did want to attack with your second Magneton, you can just Magnetic Field that Lightning Energy back. 4 copies of Boost Energy. Boost Energy attaches 3 energy cards for a single turn, and I do want to note too, you cannot retreat with Boost Energy, so be very aware of that. But it just combos with so many different things in the deck. You can use, it adds damage for Energy Burst, it adds damage for Size Storm, it adds damage for Max Energy Source, and lastly it adds energy for Magnetic Force. These Boost Energies are going to be absolutely crucial to maximizing your damage output. So really, you want to track those very early in the game. You want to know how many you prized. You want to know if you've got access to them. And you want to make sure that you are playing those. You're being very smart with your plays on those, because those are going to be probably 4 of the most important cards in the entire deck. Alright, so that wraps up our deck profile for Gardevoir for 2004. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more content like this in the future, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Until then, I hope to see you in the next video.